We usually do 2 runs during the day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and should be a gate card for each one of them. You'll get both of these cards in the morning, but when you're filling them out, you should only fill out one at a time. That particularly pertains to the diagram on the back. In between the first run and the second run, it's very likely that the gates will be reset, so the positions of your gates may be different from the morning to the afternoon. You might not even have the same number of gates. So be sure to fill out only one card at a time and wait until the second run before you draw any of the diagrams that go on the back. The Metro Ski League has its own custom gate card. The front side of it looks like a little chart, and this is for recording what happens in your section of the course during the race. These particular cards are what are called a fault-only style. It means you only record something when something bad happens. There are different kinds of gate cards. They're called no-fault cards, where you'll put a check mark, for instance, for every racer that goes by. We don't make you do that. You only have to write something down on these cards if there's a missed gate or some other disqualifying action. On the card, there's a top part which has just basic identifying information on it. And we do ask you to fill all this stuff out. It's important to us because we have multiple races during the season and even 2 runs during a day, so some of this stuff helps us keep track of the cards. There's a date section, a place to fill out what kind of race it is, whether it's a slalom, a GS race, a boys course or girls course, or varsity and junior varsity, so circle whatever applies there. There's a place to write down the gate numbers that you're watching, and you'll be assigned the gate numbers when you get out on the course by your chief gatekeeper. There's a place to put your name and whether or not it's the first run or the second run. We usually try to do 2 runs during the day, and there's one gate card for each run. We have a place to even put your cell phone number on there in case we need to find you after the race. So if you have a cell phone, please write your cell phone number down there as well. Lastly, on the top section, there's a place to indicate whether or not you ended up with any disqualifications for that particular run. So check either yes or no, and this helps us go through the gate cards faster at the end of the run. Below that, there's a section that spells out different disqualification codes. We've talked about missed gates, straddling, being overtaken. We've also talked about limits to losing skis or binding releases. You get to lose 1 ski 1 time without being disqualified. So we have a code for losing more than 1 ski 1 time, and that's simply a second binding release. And that has a code of BR2. There are also there's a way to be disqualified that doesn't involve skiing, and that's unsportsmanlike conduct, which has a code of UC. Then there are other codes that you can use on your card. One's DNF for did not finish. This is something that's technically kept track of by the finish referee, but if you observe what you think is a non-finish by a racer, you can put that on your card. And then there's a place to record a single binding release, which by itself isn't a disqualifying event. And here, what you do is you record what you see. In your section of the course, or if that's the only part of the course you can see, if you see a racer lose a ski, 1 ski only, by itself, that doesn't lead to a disqualification, but you record it as an observed event. If someone else later on down the course sees that same racer lose 1 ski, they'll write it on their card too. And between the 2 cards, we could tell if a racer's exceeded the binding release limits allowed by the rules and disqualify them for that. It's pretty rare for us to catch something like that, but this gives us a chance of doing this. Now, if you happen to be on a section of the course where, in addition to the gates in front of you, you can also see quite a ways above, if you saw a given racer lose 1 ski, put it back on, continue down to your section, and then lose the ski again, and you were 100% sure it was that same racer exceeding the one binding release limit, then you'd be able to write BR2 because you saw that racer lose one ski twice. So you record down on your card what you are able to see, no more, no less. In the chart section, there's a place to write down your observations. Again, these are for faults only. You'd write down the bib number, your observation using these codes, and adding the gate number that it happened at. On the bottom right-hand part of the chart, there's some examples for how the card should be filled out in case there's a fault. In this example, racer 27 missed gate 7, so it's MG7. Racer 63 had an observed second binding release at gate 8, so that's BR2-8. And racer 81 lost their temper, so it's unsportsmanlike conduct. You can write down what they did. If there's foul language involved, you can write down what they said. That would be for the coach to know. When you're recording these things on your card, you need to be not only sure of your call, and we talked about that before, that there's judgment involved. One thing you have to be 100% sure of is the bib number. If you're not sure of the bib number and you don't think you saw it yourself, you can't mark down that racer with a fault. If racer 7 went by and the next racer came by and you're not sure of the number, you can't assume it's racer 8. We have missing bibs in our set, and sometimes the racers don't go down in numerical order like they're supposed to. So be absolutely sure of the bib number when you make a call and write it on your card. On the reverse side of the card, there's some panels for you to draw artwork. And what we're looking for here is a little diagram of your particular gate configuration and recording paths that the racers take if they make a mistake, like missing a gate. In the upper left corner of the card, there's a spot where we want you to draw a reference diagram. And here's an example of one of those for a GS. In this case, this gatekeeper is watching gates 7, 8, and 9. And the X's and the O's on here, which are a convention spelled out on the gate card at the top, show the locations of the gates in this section of the course. The ampersand shows the gatekeeper's position relative to the gates. This arrow here, what we want you to do is use that to show what would be considered a normal passage. Normally, the normal passage is the fastest way through the gates. So we want one of these in the upper left panel of your card. And when you've done that, in the other 3 panels, we want you to draw exactly the same diagram with the arrow removed. And what this does is create some templates that are ready for you to use in case there's a gate fault in your section. Here's an example of a simple gate fault for gates 7, 8, and 9 here. In this case, the racer has gone through gates 7 and 8 correctly, and instead of going between the poles on gate 9, they swung wide to skier's left, and they missed the gate. You yelled as loud as you could back, and they didn't hear you, and they kept on going. So you have no other choice but to record it as a gate fault on your card. Now I get asked often, well, there's 100 racers in the race and I've only got 3 panels to write down gate faults. How's that going to be enough? Well, the answer is when racers miss gates, they usually get confused by the same thing and they miss the gates the same way. So what you do in that case is you don't draw more pictures of the same thing, you just use the same picture over and over. In this example, Racer 8, Racer 72, and Racer 91 all missed gate 9 the same way, and the same diagram can be used over and over for each racer. So you just add more racer numbers at the top of the card. And on the front of the card, Racers 8, 72, and 91 would appear with the code MG9 written by them to indicate they missed gate 9.